Hello and welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Leaders Podcast with me, Mark Bracknell, Managing Director of Theo James Recruitment. In today's episode, we welcomed on Sam Briggs, the Head of Human Resources at Aarsleff Ground Engineering. I loved this episode for so many reasons. Sam is so unbelievably passionate about HR and people. We talked in detail about real tangible things and tips and takeaways you can actually implement in your business today if you are a HR professional. So we talked about the importance of appraisals, but actually changing those to micro appraisals and using technology to do so. We talked about engagement surveys, the importance of them, but actually getting them right. But what we really honed in on is data. Sam is passionate about data. I asked her the three most important pieces of data that you should be using in your business to talk the language that will create actions for typically leadership, operation professionals and leaders in manufacturing businesses. And we talked in detail about that, which you can get loads of tips and takeaways. She's also very passionate about the new generation. She's actually now qualified a doctorate within doing so. So we really picked her brains regarding this in terms of how you harness that new generation of engineers and getting people into the industry whilst actually working in partnership with, let's say, 5 generations of people within a factory right now. So really interesting stuff we talked about, and I really enjoyed this episode. It's one of those where you're going to come away with some tangible tips which you can implement in your business straight away. So thank you so much, Sam. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please watch or listen. Please just hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me keep growing the show. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the episode. Excellent. So a warm welcome today to Sam Briggs on the podcast, who is Head of HR at Aarsleff Ground Engineering. Have I said that right?
You have, yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So how are you, Sam? All good?
I'm very well, thank you, Mark. I'm very happy to be here today. Been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll get straight into it if that's okay with you. So first question is the same question I ask everyone that comes on. Yep. What does it mean to you to be a leader?
Okay. There's a quote where they say, manager says go, a leader says let's go. For me, it's a classic quote. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, but it sums it up nicely, because for me, it's about creating that vision and bringing the team along with you and being part of that team. Not just dictating this is what we're doing, but people need to understand why we do what we do. It's about empowering people. It's about team building. It's about mentoring. It's about understanding your people, being a leader, and knowing, where their skills are, what motivates them, what they're interested in, leveraging their skills, but also looking at, what are the development opportunities for them. I've had managers over the years who, have taken a bit of pride in the fact that when they're on holiday, things fall to pieces. That's not leadership. You should empower your people, and, your people should be as skilled to do whatever the task is as good when you're not there as well. So, we're bringing people along, but certainly, presenting that kind of compelling vision of where we want to get to, so that people buy into that. And then, people want to give their all.
Yeah,
I think that's
the difference. I love that example, actually, because you're absolutely right. It's people get into management for different reasons, and people enjoy being managers for different reasons. And I think typically the people, I would say, on average, come in here are people like you who are in it because they understand exactly what you said there, the importance of being together as one, and you might lead by example, but you still do it together as a team. And I think that's what's important. But it's a really good example of that, because there is people out there that take pride in things falling to pieces when they're not there, but it's absolutely the wrong way to manage, because someone told me that you try to make yourself redundant wherever you go, almost try to make your role redundant to hopefully then step up, because essentially you need to create opportunities for people under you. But if you're not doing that, it's not a badge of honor to do exactly what you said there. You need to make sure you build that autonomy so people can step into your shoes, and if you're not here for 2 weeks, the business can still tick away and run without you in it.
Absolutely. But then future-proofing the business as well, thinking about that talent pipeline, thinking about empowering people so that people feel enabled,
Yes.
And people then want to be part of that journey. So, people are more likely to stay with the business. You've got less flight risks, So it's all part of that. People think, oh, the HR piece, the people management piece, it's a nice to have, but it's absolutely fundamental. It's all about people.
100%. And I'm looking forward in this episode to really digging into that, because I know you've got some fantastic stuff to talk about with that. Very briefly, I want to go back to so people understand sort of your background, if that's okay. Obviously, you've had a extraordinary career in HR and the qualifications behind as well, which we'll talk to. But take us right back briefly, you wouldn't mind, in terms of when you first started out, because obviously you've had an interesting career to get where you are today as well, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, because I never started out in HR, and HR wasn't something that was on my radar. My first degree is actually in accountancy. So that, went to Lincoln, did a bachelor's in accountancy, and my leadership journey started at the same time. So I lived at home, commuted to uni, come from a working class family. For me at the time, I couldn't afford to live away. So I lived at home, worked 20 to 30 hours a week in a local supermarket and paid my own way. When I was 18, I got promoted to team leader in the customer cafe. And I did that part-time while I was at uni studying for my accountancy degree. So I always thought I'd leave uni and go into finance. But because I suppose I'd kind of started forging that leadership career, kind of made a name for myself. I think because I've always had a strong work ethic, and a bit of grit, and I like to get things done. It kind of got me noticed.
Yeah.
So actually my store manager at the time said to me, well, have you considered the graduate scheme? And at the time I thought, well, I don't know, I'll give it a go. In the back of my mind, I was always thinking, oh, well, I'll keep looking out for any finance opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the graduate scheme, completed that, did well at that, and then ended up in store management in retail. Absolutely loved it, loved operations, loved being in the thick of things. Went back to uni part-time and did an MBA. That was a hard slog.
Yeah.
Because so many years ago, long hours in retail. And I did it, self-funded it, did it all in my own time. Loved it. But then I think I'd always been interested in like the people side of things. I'd always been the manager who kind of dealt with the people, ER issues and recruiting and, everything kind of people related. So an opportunity came up to move across in the same organisation into HR. I took it. I thought, chance to learn something new. Because of my people management experience, I've been doing it since 18. I was able to move in at HR manager level and kind of, that people management experience really helped me out. Decided I loved HR then, just because, it's about people. People do the do. Yeah. So I'm really passionate about investing in people and empowering people. Decided HR was kind of where I'd found my niche. So I went back to uni, did a master's in HR, and then left retail, and it's kind of opened the door then to other industries because every industry has HR. So, that was a great opportunity. So after that, moved into manufacturing, moved into supply chain, logistics. So a lot of what you call your gritty environments, your heavy blue collar environments. And it's just been great ever since. I moved to a wholesale business. I had a fantastic manager there who said to me, I had loads of ideas, always had bags of ideas. And my manager there said to me, you pilot it. If it goes well, it's your baby. If it doesn't go well, it's on your head. And that's all I really needed to hear. Just an opportunity to try new things. And I've just really thrived since then. So really found my niche in HR.
I think what's interesting, I think people from a retail and hospitality background, I think it's they're two of the best industries in terms of to give people resilience and work rate and such a rounded skill set, because you're dealing with obviously the public on a day-to-day basis, and I imagine no 2 days the same. Loads and loads of successful people I've met have come from that background. I don't think it's a coincidence.
No, definitely not. It certainly does, build your resilience. It's very demanding.
Yeah.
You have to work hard. If you don't work hard, you kind of don't succeed in those environments. But also my background has I'd say it's given me an edge in HR. So, the finance degree that I've got, my MBA, that ops management experience, I've got a real commercial awareness that I've found that I've been able to take into HR.
Yes.
I've worked in a lot of places and I'm passionate about changing the perception of HR. A lot of businesses see HR as very transactional, very administrative. And obviously there are elements of HR that still are, but actually it's about knowing the business, knowing, what makes money, how do we make money as a business, what are the key drivers, how do we leverage people to help the business succeed. So having that commercial awareness, having that background, that's certainly helped me as well.
Did you find that, because manufacturing, typically can be quite an archaic industry,
Yes.
It isn't as modernized as some. Did you find that a frustration or perhaps a challenge going into those industries and seeing that firsthand? And I imagine, even now, I guess it is still behind the times with some industries, I would say.
It is. And I've certainly moved into roles. And sometimes I felt, I'm a progressive thinker, but sometimes I feel like I'm just bringing it up to date.
Yeah.
I'm not even taking it as far as I could. I've always seen it as an opportunity, but I've always been very driven and I am absolutely an optimist. To me, the glass isn't half full, the glass is full, because no matter how much liquid you've got in it, the rest is full of air.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I think of things. So it's been a challenge kind of getting people on board, especially, senior leaders in some of the businesses that might have been there a long time. They have seen HR as just being in a back office function, just doing the paperwork. Absolutely. So, and I think this is what's helped me as well, is being able to understand the commerciality, understand the figures, and actually use the figures to give HR credibility. So HR are not just sat in the room saying, we've got a problem, with retention or recruitment, etc. Actually going in there and saying that, this year we've lost X amount of people. This is our turnover rate. This is our cost per hire for one replacement employee, factoring everything from recruitment time, interviewing time, managerial time, uniform costs. What is that lost output productivity cost to the business if it takes somebody 6 months to get up to full speed? Going in with the financials, then people pay attention to that. They might not pay attention to what they think is the pink and fluffy stuff.
Yes.
Although, there's a commercial element to that as well. High engagement is not just a nice to have. Highly engaged employees are more productive. There's been studies into it. McLeod and Clark, 18%. There's a commercial angle to everything. And I think going into a meeting, being able to articulate myself confidently, have the data, have the figures, people then start to listen.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think you're absolutely bang on there, because sometimes there can be a divide between owner, CEO, or operations and HR, that it's an us versus them, and it's the HR can deal with it mentality. There's just go to HR. But actually, what you're talking about there, I think is excellent, because you've obviously used your background in finance and understanding data analytics coupled with your passion to work with people and help people, that progression piece. So it's led to where you are perfectly. But actually, I think there's some great advice there that people can get, that, you can lead with data, because typically operations people in manufacturing enjoy data. They run machines off data. They run, everything it's a downtime and cost analysis and all this type of stuff. So to lean into that, I think is perfect. I mean, what would you say, out of interest, if you went into a new role now, which is a new, typical, manufacturing and engineering type business? What would be the 3 pieces of data or information that you would want to seek and understand to be able to showcase that to, let's say, an owner or the operations leadership team? What do you say?
Yeah, so I think firstly, it's about understanding the business. Before I get into the specific data that I'd be looking at, absolutely understanding the business. And I think what you said then is absolutely key. I've got to be able to go in and speak to them in their language. And that's how I build that relationship with them. So I need to understand what the business does, actually go and spend time on the shop floor. And this is what I've done wherever I've worked. I've been and spent time speaking to the people, finding out, what goes on, how they feel about things. Stats, obviously, the typical things that we look at, but they really do paint a picture of a business. Engagement, whether you do your engagement surveys. And for me, engagement's only one part of that. A lot of businesses, a lot of HR professionals, they like zone in on what is our engagement score. And that's usually your response to, I am happy at work. But to me, it's about more than engagement. It's also about enablement. So an enablement question on a survey might be having the skills, the resources, the equipment to do my job well. And if you've got a mismatch between those two scores, you've got a potential problem brewing. Yeah. Because you can have people coming into work, I'm happy at work, I'm happy at work. But if they're coming in day after day after day and they've not got the tools, the resources, the right equipment, the right, information, it's going to chip away at them. And eventually you'll end up with this huge dip. So certainly engagement, but definitely looking at enablement, because that's one factor that gets missed. Your things like your absenteeism, your turnover, people, they vote with their feet. Yeah. They might not always be open to how they're feeling, but if you've got a high turnover problem, absolutely we look at that. A lot of managers will say we've got a recruitment issue, whereas I'll be like, okay, well, actually it's a retention issue, because if we kept the people, if we kept those skills in the business, we wouldn't need to recruit.
Yes.
So retention is absolutely more critical than ever. So that's a focus area as well. So whether we think actually, do we need to just do more, we do engagement surveys, but kind of what angle are we going at with that? Spoke about enablement, but why do people choose to stay with us? Why do people choose to stay with a business? And then it's about benchmarking, because people vote with their feet. They're going to look at what's out there. Cost of living crisis, things like salary and benefits are more important than ever. So actually, are we competitive as an employer versus other people? So I'd be looking at benchmarking as well, not just salary, but other benefits. And benefits are going to be different depending on what generation you are and what kind of your life priorities are. So actually, is there an opportunity to offer more flexible benefits that people can opt into depending on what life stage they're at? So appreciate there's a lot.
No, it's
a lot thrown at you there.
I agree with all of it. And actually what I really agree with, and people think I shouldn't because I'm a recruitment firm, but it's the retention piece. You're absolutely right. The people are always talking about struggles with the recruitment, but if you really dig into it, it's because they've got X amount of people leaving. And like you say, the percentage of, unfortunately, for the last 5 years, the percentage of growth for many companies hasn't been that big. It's actually been replacing people that have left. But I see companies making the same mistakes time after time and time. But actually, they make the same mistakes because they don't understand in the first place what mistakes they're making. Yeah. Because they're not doing exit interviews. They're not doing pre-exit interviews. They're not understanding where they're going wrong and how can you fix something if you don't know where the mistake is. So I completely agree. I couldn't agree more with that. I think a lot of companies, we run HR round tables sometimes, and sometimes they struggle with on engagement surveys actually getting people to do them. I would say. Yeah. Is that a common issue you've come against?
It is, but I think a lot of that is because employees think, well, what's the point? Because nothing ever comes of it.
Yes.
So I think where people miss the trick is that they do an engagement survey and it might be once a year, and then they might put an action plan together and then it'll get shelved and it'll be pulled out a year later. And there might be some last minute attempt to say, oh, you said we did. But because it's not living and breathing throughout the year, it doesn't mean anything to people. So that's why you don't get the buy-in. I think that a better way, rather than an annual survey, is to have a pulse approach, so that you're doing it little and often throughout the year. And you might want to carve it up into themes. What's relevant right now to people right now, and have a theme of the month maybe, but do it little and often so that people can see that it's continually happening, but absolutely following through. So whatever the responses are from that survey, whatever the insights are, communicating them out and actually committing to action so that people understand what's happening and keeping it living and breathing. Yeah. That helps because people then feel that actually my opinion does count for something. They are taking it seriously. They're not just playing lip service to it.
Yeah, 100%. Because exactly that. If you open the box up to suggestions and you do nothing with them, you're in a worse position when you start from, aren't you?
Yeah. And it's almost like, what's the point? And I know why businesses will do it, because they go out and say, we care about our staff because we do an annual engagement survey.
Yeah.
They do it so that they can say they're doing it. Not actually for, what's the real purpose of doing it?
Yeah, they're ticking the box, aren't they? I completely agree. Another issue that manufacturing in particular has, particularly post-COVID, is the succession planning piece. I think there's a lot of people who are left or due to leave the next 5-10 years, and there's not enough people coming through, which is a real issue, and it's a real challenge. Obviously, it's a real challenge for that HR piece. But there's always things you can do. Is that something that you've seen and you're concerned about? Would you say that generation gap?
Yeah, definitely. The generation gap is absolutely huge, and this is a topic that I'm really passionate about. So much so that I've actually started a doctorate.
Wow.
Where this is my project.
Nice.
I'm really passionate about education in general, and certainly within the HR space. So I do public speaking at events, and the generation gap in the workplace, and making sure that we're future fit is a real passion project of mine. And there's a huge gap in expectations. They say we've got 5 to 6 generations in the workplace at the minute. People are staying on longer. Younger people are coming in, vastly different life experience, and I'm I don't like accepting that we do something because we've always done it that way. I'm always looking at actually how can we improve things, and I think they all help attracting new blood into organisations and helping develop that new blood in organisations as well. So I've certainly found in businesses that we've got a lot of, I don't think you'll see this as much in the future. I think the job for life isn't a thing. I don't think it's a thing anymore. I don't think the younger generations think like that, but the older generations do. So there's people in my business now with 30 plus years service, coming up to that retirement age. The knowledge that they've got, it's about how do we kind of share that knowledge. So I think, mentoring is a useful tool that we can use, and it can go both ways in an organisation. It can be, the more experienced generations mentoring the younger ones and sharing that knowledge, but also there's value in the younger generations coming in who are the digital natives. They're more tech literate, actually sharing and supporting the older generations as well. So I think mentoring can go both ways, and that helps bridge the gap somewhat. But just how we do things, or traditionally do things in HR. I mean, the annual engagement survey is one example. I definitely believe we should be more little and often with things. Another example, an initiative that I've launched, is micro appraisals, rather than the annual appraisal, which was designed and developed in the 1950s. A time where people saved all year to go and do something, which it doesn't happen now. People have got shorter attention spans, and we live in an instantaneous world. Yet we expect people to wait all year for an annual appraisal. And then we set objectives in an annual appraisal that are going to be obsolete within 2 months because business is so fast paced. It doesn't make sense to me, yet we still do it. So one thing that I've launched is a micro appraisal, is where we do it little and often. We leverage tech to do it. So it's a simple form that can be used via a QR code on a phone, out and about on the go. And actually, it's more about the conversation than the documentation.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast with a very quick 30-second description of my business. Theo James are an engineering and manufacturing recruitment search firm based in Durham. We specialise in contract and permanent opportunities, from blue-collar, semi-skilled roles right the way up to C-suite level exec positions. If you're looking for any new additional staff or new opportunity for yourself in the industry, please contact me or the team. There'll be a specialist in your area waiting to help. I'm incredibly proud of this business and what we've built since our inception in 2015, and I would love to extend that service out to you. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the episode.
And it's about normalising those regular contact points between managers and employees. And this is what certainly the younger generation coming into the world of work, they expect. They've grown up amongst social media, kind of that constant information. So, they like feedback, and they like regular, frequent feedback.
Yes.
They like just-in-time feedback.
Mm-hmm.
The older generations, no news is good news.
Yeah.
It's a very, very different mindset. So we want to attract the new blood into the business. We need to make it an environment that they want to come and join.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I love that. Because you're absolutely right. And it's interesting when you said that, because, you know, we'll touch on the appraisals, because I completely agree. But actually, when you're talking about, like, you know, say the 5 generations, you're right. You've got apprentices, 16, 17-year-old apprentices, and you've got people retiring now at, you know, post 65.
Yeah.
But you've actually now got a time manufacturing where companies are bringing in automation, they're bringing in AI, and actually, exactly that. You might well find that a 65-year-old can help an apprentice on X, Y, and Z, because they've done it for 30, 40 years. But you're going to find a 16, 17-year-old is probably going to adapt to that process a lot quicker. And you can see them in the canteen, sort of show them on the phone, going, look, this is what you do. So I think that's it's a really healthy mix, that, because it's not one way. You're merging all different styles together, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I think that is the modern way, and that is the future way. The older generations, you know, grew up in a world where children should be seen and not heard. They're more deferential to authority. These taller, hierarchical structures in businesses suited them. The modern world, the younger generation, not so much. They grow up in a world where we've got social media. Everyone's got a voice, everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's encouraged to share that. So these, you know, taller structures don't work anymore. We think about how we use org charts, and most businesses do. You know, they'll say, "Oh, go into a business, show me your organisation structure," and people produce org charts, and it basically just shows who reports into who. It doesn't show the relationships between different teams. It doesn't show kind of the heat map of who communicates with who. So I just think there's real opportunity. Look at carving up everything, really, and thinking, actually, how can we bring it up to date? How can we?
Which actually, sorry, really links in with that, because every time we've run surveys to why people stay, leave, and all that type of stuff, salary is always number one, you know, and it always will be. Then now it's flexibility, because people, you know, want some flexibility. But after that, you've got progression, and if you dig, and we've sort of dug deep in that, it's actually sort of documented progression, you know, very, very that transparency, because exactly that generation is different now, where they need to know. I want to know, because I might not be here in 5 years' time. What can I get? Have you found that as well?
I have absolutely found that, and we see that more when we're recruiting. You know, we've done some recent graduate recruitment, and they're asking about development. They're asking about professional accreditation. What's that journey look like? And they want to see it mapped out. You know, what does the next couple of years look like? And I do think that, you know, the job for life is gone, and people are more, you know, thinking about their own development. And seeing a lot of that. And it's so important to have, like, the development plans for people, so that they feel that they're invested in, and they feel that they can grow. And, you know, their growth is ultimately the business's growth as well. One thing I don't like sheep dip training, you know, just putting people through the same kind of training for the sake of it. One thing that I've been using successfully is psychometric testing, using insights discovery. There's a few that you can use. Myers-Briggs, DISC, for instance. It's all based on the same methodology of Carl Jung. So I first came across insights many years ago in a business as a delegate on a training course, and it's for self-reflection, for self-awareness. It's absolutely fantastic. I was able to better communicate and work with, you know, people who were a different character type to me, and I saw the value in that. So I then became accredited, and I've started rolling it out where I work now. So people join in, they get to do it, they get a personal report, and it can really help their self-awareness. And we can use it as a business, because it means that any development we put in place for them can be more specific and targeted to them.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely, because you're understanding. Because actually, sometimes to understand yourself can help, can't it? Where your strengths and weaknesses are. Is that is that costly for a business? So how does that work? Because I think right now people are put off by anything which could be an added cost, which isn't budgeted for.
It is. There is a cost to it. So I mean, I became accredited practitioner of insights many years ago, and there was a one-off cost to go through that training course. I then have to kind of pay an annual license, and then any profiles that we generate, there is a cost to that. But we really do see the strategic value in it. And
Yeah.
we've not just used it for development, we've also used it as part of our recruitment process as well. So, we acknowledge that we need a blend of styles within a team and a blend of approaches. And the more diverse we are, the better we're going to be as a business. So we've actually used it to steer some of our hiring decisions as well. When we've brought people into a team, we've got team profiles. So we think, oh, actually, we've got this kind of gap in a team. We'll have a look at when we recruit. Not only has someone got the skills and experience that we need, but actually, kind of what's their profile? Can they offer something to the team that the team's missing? Yeah. So we've used it in that way as well.
Yeah, and actually, I think what we talked about as well, what's one of the biggest challenges and the biggest cost is replacing people.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? Even if 2 or 3 of your hires, work out, or actually 2 or 3 people you would have hired, you don't hire because you've realised in that recruitment process they're not right for your business culturally, then you've probably saved yourself X amount of money there as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So it's
Definitely with the recruitment piece. But if people feel actually the business is really investing in me, this is forging my development plan. It's a slightly more personal development plan than just going through a sheep dip approach. They're going to feel kind of more invested in the business as well. They're more likely to stay with the business. So that flight risk is reduced. And then your obviously replacement cost as well.
Would you say this is another thing that you can link in with the data piece? Because I guess a lot of it is persuading whoever has the budget to say, look, we need to this be part of it. Is this another thing for you as well? Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. So absolutely knowing the stats. I mean, before I joined my current business, HR team didn't do a lot of kind of the data review. I'm really passionate about it. I want to take it further. For me, it's not just about reporting on what our current stats are, but actually what are the trends and how can we use that data to predict what's going to happen next, and how can we then put initiatives in place to impact that.
I'm very passionate about training, and it links into what you're talking about. But I think, again, particularly the new generation want to be trained and want to be progressive. Again, not all companies right now can maybe afford to put everyone through university degrees and stuff. Do you think there are ways that companies internally can look at some form of either free, apprenticeship led or budget or internal training that can help? Would you say?
I'd say so. Appreciate, not all businesses might have got that kind of internal capacity to do training. I've previously designed management development programs to be delivered in-house. On the back of a lot of time people are promoted because they're good taskmasters, and then we expect them to manage people and they don't have the skill set to do it. And I've always worked in these very fast-paced businesses, so I understand getting people off the shop floor is tricky. So I designed a full suite of 90-minute training sessions on kind of people management projects, and I've been able to roll those out internally wherever I've gone. Because it's my material, I've kind of, wherever I've moved, I've rebranded, rolled it out, and that's worked well. Apprenticeships, definitely. I think there's real value in that. The cost of university education these days is crazy. So actually, we've had some real success stories from our apprenticeships as well. One thing we have started piloting at Aarsleff is a degree apprentice. So we've got somebody who's joined the business. We're actually funding them through a part-time degree over 5 years. And they're going to see that investment in them. They're going to get a degree out of it, and hopefully that will be able to retain them longer term because they can see that the business has invested.
Yeah, I love that. And it's time, isn't it? I think it's time now to really start looking at that long-term plan for companies, because I think we had to make very quick decisions over things like COVID and all that type of stuff, and we had to shelve some decisions. But now I think it's time to look for the future, because if you haven't got a 5-10 year plan, then it's going to be here before you know it, and nothing's going to change, is it?
Definitely. And again, on that cost piece, you said a lot of businesses are saying, well, what's the cost impact of a lot of these initiatives? Well, my question would be, well, what's the cost of not doing it?
Absolutely.
Yes, there's a cost of doing it. However, the cost of us not doing this is people leave. We know that the recruitment, that the talent pool isn't necessarily out there. It's a real struggle to recruit people.
Yeah.
We don't have people in the business to do. What happens to the business?
And what I'm hearing, I think if I was a HR professional listening to this, and I think the important thing probably is everything stems from the data, doesn't it? Everything stems from understanding actually where you currently are, the current position in terms of that retention piece, how much money you're spending on this, and so on. So I think if you have that, you're fueled, aren't you, with that data, to tell a story, I guess, to whoever
absolutely
makes decisions.
Tell the story and be able to have impact and be able to influence. That's how HR gains credibility. Knowing the business, building the relationships with the stakeholders. Some people ask me, "Oh, what's my job?" And I'll sometimes say my job is speaking to people, finding out what their issues are, and then solving it from a people perspective. People will reel off what's HR's job. Oh, it's recruitment, it's advertising, it's all these and these. My view is it's about speaking to people, knowing the business, speaking to the stakeholders. So this is why this relationship piece is so important. I find out, okay, so what's the issue over here? Is it that we've not got the skilled resource to do a particular task? Okay, then, so we now put a strategy together. Is it a buy-in? Is it a build? Or is it a borrow? Are we buying in? Are we recruiting that resource? Are we building? Is it a development initiative? Or is it a temporary labour piece? So, finding out actually what are the issues from a people perspective. And there's always a people's perspective because people do the do. So this is why for me, HR is just interwoven into the whole business. It's not just that department at the end of the corridor that does contracts and sacks people.
It's funny about I've just put a LinkedIn post there about where HR Roundtable we're doing it, and I use the term HR professionals are often the unsung heroes of businesses because I really believe that. And what I think's been nice and important, I would say, I think people understand that now. I think now you're seeing more terms like head of people and that side. So I think people understand that it isn't this transactional policy legal piece. It's actually, someone who is at the heartbeat of every business, often tying it together. It's such an important role, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm really passionate about it because I see the value that it can add. But one thing is it's never dull. There's always something different happening. You mentioned employment law policy there. Obviously, we've got the Employment Rights Bill, coming out, the new Labour government, and their reforms. Keeping on top of all of that, and preparing the business for that when that comes in, because there's going to be some different ways of working. And people, and part of the pleasure of it, part of the interest is people are unpredictable. So for me, there's so much variety in HR.
Why do you think you're so passionate about sort of changing the traditional styles? A lot of people just go, well, this is what it is, I'll work within it. You're obviously challenging that.
I am. I've always kind of been interested in being a critical thinker, I suppose, and just challenging norms and thinking, well, why do we do this? Why are we doing? We're a modern business. The pace of change, the pace of technological change, societal change, yet we do an annual performance review. Why? I always think, well, why do we do what we do? I just question a lot. And it's not about change for the sake of change. It's always about what's best for the business. And it's always about, I'm very practical as a person. I think it's because I've got that ops background. So, I'm certainly not ivory tower. I'm always thinking about how can we adapt it. It's got to be practical. It's got to work for the business. And because I've been in ops, I understand that perspective. But it's a completely different world. Like looking at the hierarchical structures and just the mindset. The modern mindset's so different.
I love that. The obviously a lot of time we talk about challenges, but I think it's nice to be, have the optimistic view a lot of time as well. What do you see as the opportunities in manufacturing and in engineering over the next sort of 5-10 years that you're looking forward to tackling?
I think there's a big focus on sustainability. Certainly from a people perspective, it's about being future-proof, future fit. So a lot of the initiatives that I'm driving are things that are going to, I suppose, attract and help retain new people coming into the business, because that's what we need to do. We need fresh ideas. We need different ideas. And That is a challenge, because I know we mentioned earlier on about certainly a lot of the leaders, and you find this with a generation gap. A lot of the senior leaders are of the older generation, and they might be kind of stuck in their perspective, and they might have the view that, well, this has worked for the past 30 years. Why do we need to change?
Yeah.
But that's not a sustainable mindset. That's not a sustainable approach.
Yeah.
You've got to prepare the business for that continuity. So I think sustainability agenda is absolutely huge. But yeah, just apprenticeships, bringing new people in, development, trying to retain skills. It's all about business continuity.
Yeah, I completely agree. Amazing stuff. And just finally, for the next sort of 12 to 18 months for Aarsleff and Ground Engineering, what's on the horizon? Much happening there? What do you say?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of conferences looking at. It's hard to innovate in ground engineering just because it's the structural part of a construction that you don't see, and it's got to be covered by insurances. You can't go off doing wildly inventive things that are untested, that are not going to get insurance coverage. So certainly from that perspective, it's difficult to innovate. We try and innovate, but it's about attracting new people to the business. So I mean, there's a conference in Bruges next year, Deep Foundations Institute conference, that we're looking at attending. And what we'd like to do is be getting a couple of new graduates into the business and maybe sponsoring them to attend, and showing them that we're willing to invest in them for the future. Yeah, big focus on that.
Yeah, because they say if you can't innovate the product, you can innovate the people, and that innovates the culture, doesn't it? And that's essentially what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and look, I just want to thank you for this, Sam, because it's I've really enjoyed it as well, and I spend most of my week speaking to HR managers, and they talk to me about their challenges, and that could be people challenges, that could be sort of managing upwards, and the sort of challenges come from that. And I think what you've demonstrated here is that, and there's some tangible here. I know for a fact that with people listening going, yeah, we need to improve on this, or because those little things that you've mentioned, the appraisals piece, all that type of stuff, that's things that people can implement in the next month across the business and have a monumental effect, which cost nothing realistically. Do you know what I mean? So and I think that's why I love episodes like this, where people can go away with inspiration, because you're a very inspiring person. I think what you do is excellent, and the additional qualifications and time you put into bettering yourself, but also bettering the people around you, that radiates. So thank you very much. It's been great. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Manufacturing Leads podcast. It absolutely means the world to me. Please let me know if you need any assistance. As a business, we look at providing partnerships with manufacturing engineering companies to really help their recruitment and retention. On the recruitment piece, anywhere from blue collar, semi-skilled staff, right the way up to C-suite level executive appointments, but also much more than that. We run events, so please let me know if you're interested in any of those. If you are interested indeed becoming a podcast guest, I'd be very, very keen to speak to you as well. More than happy to do so. But as a business, as I say, we look at key partnerships to really help your recruitment, your retention, your marketing, your training. We really believe in the partnership piece and being an extension of your business. So we're very proud to work in this sector. I love manufacturing engineering, and my staff are just as passionate about it as I am. So thank you once again for listening. Please get in touch to talk about anything we can do to help. Look forward to speaking to you very soon. Thank you.